She laughed with everyone, too loudly, too often, like she was performing. Her arm looped around friends' shoulders, her voice rising above the background jazz, as if she were the host of a televised gala, not a wife at her birthday dinner. And me? I was there too, seated at the far end of the long candlelit table, watching the woman I married pretend like I was part of the decor. Haley wore a crimson silk dress that shimmered with every turn. Every time she leaned in to whisper something to a guest, she tossed her hair the way she used to when she wanted my attention. Now she barely looked in my direction. Every smile she gave out tonight felt perfectly measured, generous to all but one. Me. Her colleagues were here. Friends, old and new. Even Eli Morgan, the friend who'd been popping up in stories lately more often than I cared to count, sat comfortably close. Too close. I watched him slide his hand onto her lower back as she stood beside him laughing at something he said. Not the kind of laugh you fake, the kind you save for someone who makes you feel seen. That hand on her back lingered, rested there like it had a right to be. She didn't flinch, she didn't pull away. My wine glass was untouched. I didn't need anything clouding my judgment tonight. I hadn't come here to make a scene. I had come to make a statement. As the waiter cleared the dinner plates and whispers of dessert spread like perfume through the room, I reached inside my jacket pocket. My fingers found the envelope. Smooth, perfectly sealed, heavier than it should have been. A quiet gift, one she didn't know she was waiting for. I sat back, watched, waited. Haley raised her glass and stood, clinking a spoon against its rim. A hush fell over the room as she launched into her speech, all sparkle and charm, naming names, thanking everyone who had helped her feel loved, seen, and celebrated. Everyone. Except me. The room applauded. She smiled. And that's when the candles came in. The room dimmed just, slightly as the waiter entered with the cake. Chocolate ganache, layered with gold leaf frosting, a sparkler candle flickering on top like a firework frozen in time. The guests clapped again, more champagne glasses raised, laughter ringing out like bells. Haley placed a hand on her chest, feigning surprise. "You guys," she said, with that theatrical smile she had perfected over the years, "I wasn't expecting this." Of course she was. Every detail tonight had her fingerprints on it. The curated guest list, the private dining room at La Ruelle, the playlist looping soft, modern jazz, even the seating chart. It placed me at the end of the table, closest to the window, farthest from her orbit. I wasn't her partner tonight. I was an accessory. She stood with her back to the table and faced the group like a bride giving a toast at her own reception. "This year has been transformative," she began, her voice smooth, confident, the kind that draws attention without needing to ask for it. "I've had my challenges, my growth, and most importantly, my people. You've been there with me through it all." She started naming them. Her boss, for supporting her latest project. Her assistant, for putting out fires and keeping her sane. Her yoga instructor, for helping her stay centered and strong. Then came her best friends, each name greeted with, "I love you, babe." And the occasional inside joke. Even Eli. She looked at him and laughed, just a beat too long, before saying, "You've been a rock this year." Eli gave a modest shrug and smiled back, all charm and ease, like he wasn't the reason my jaw had been clenched the entire evening. I watched his hand ghost just behind her again, fingertips grazing her waist before returning to his wine glass. Haley didn't flinch. She just kept smiling. She never looked at me, not once, no mention, no thank you. Not even a glance. 15 years together. Vacations, surgeries, job changes, layoffs, late-night sobs, early morning airport runs, birthday gifts planned down to the bow, erased by a 6-minute monologue in a dimly lit restaurant. The table erupted into applause as she wrapped up with a radiant, "I'm so lucky to be surrounded by so much love." I nodded slowly, letting the weight of her omission sink in. I wasn't going to interrupt the clapping. I wasn't going to call her out, not with noise. I'd already decided weeks ago. When it came, my response would be quiet, but surgical. As the room settled and the sparklers fizzled out, the waiter leaned toward her. "Ready for the wish, ma'am?" Haley clasped her hands dramatically. "Oh, okay." she giggled like this was a scene from a rom-com and she was the leading woman. Everyone make a wish. Everyone. Her eyes swept the table but landed just above my head, as if I were a shadow on the wall. As the group began their gentle chorus of "Happy Birthday," I reached inside my coat. No rush. I knew exactly how long the song would last. I waited until they reached the final line, "Happy birthday to you." And the candle burned low, casting a golden light across her beaming face. That's when I slid the envelope across the table. Quiet. Intentional. Her hand froze mid-reach toward the cake. The smile flickered. She glanced down at the white envelope with her name in my handwriting, then back at me, like she couldn't compute what was happening. I held her gaze, and that was the first time she actually looked at me all night. The room didn't fall silent right away. There was still the tail end of laughter, clapping, and a few guests leaning in for phone selfies with the cake before they noticed the shift. It was subtle at first, the way Haley's fingers hovered above the envelope, how her smile froze not out of joy but confusion. The flicker in her eyes wasn't one of surprise anymore. It was dread, real and raw. She slowly picked up the envelope like it might burn her fingers. Her manicured nails hesitated at the flap. She must have recognized my handwriting. Her thumb slid under the seal with the delicate caution of someone opening something they already knew would hurt. When she unfolded the contents, I saw it. Not the paper itself. I didn't need to. I saw it in the way her face collapsed inward. The exact moment her breath hitched. She blinked twice, once fast and once slow, like her brain was buffering between disbelief and realization. The light in her eyes dimmed as she scanned the top of the first page, and then she saw the signature. Mine. Her hand dropped to her lap. The page trembled slightly between her fingers. She looked up at me, mouth parted, lips moving soundlessly for a beat, before she found her voice. "Noah," she whispered, almost inaudibly. But I didn't respond. I didn't know her words. Everything that needed to be said was printed in that envelope. The terms were final, filed, neat, cold. Around the table, conversation stumbled. A few guests leaned in, trying to figure out what had just shifted in the atmosphere. Eli, sitting a bit too close, furrowed his brow and looked at her with growing concern. "What's going on?" he asked, touching her elbow like he owned a right to her reaction. She didn't answer him. She was too busy searching my face for a lifeline, but I had none to offer. Across the table, I stood slowly and smoothed the front of my suit jacket. It was a quiet motion, but it made a sound inside her that echoed louder than any outburst ever could. Her eyes widened as I pushed my chair back without a scrape, without drama. "Noah, wait," she said, now louder, enough for others to turn. I met her gaze for the last time, my voice even and low. "Thought you'd want something personal tonight." Then I turned, leaving her seated beside a cake no one dared to touch. Behind me, the room began to ripple, whispers threading their way through linen and glass. Her friends were frozen mid-sip, mid-laugh. Eli's hand was now firmly off her back. I didn't look back. Outside, the air was crisp. My car was parked exactly where I had left it, engine cold, like me. As I opened the door and sat inside, I let the silence settle. Inside that restaurant, a candle had been blown out. But outside, I had just lit a match. Noah didn't drive away in a rush. There was no need to. He moved with the same calm precision he'd shown all night, hands steady on the wheel, posture relaxed, as if he were leaving any other dinner. The world outside was quiet. Soft jazz still echoing faintly from the restaurant's open windows, blending into the hum of traffic and laughter spilling from nearby bars. But inside Noah's car, there was only the sound of his breath. He rolled the windows down. The cool night air kissed his face, and for the first time in months, maybe years, his lungs expanded fully. No tension in his shoulders. No constant loop of doubt running circles in his mind. Only quiet. Only space. He didn't need music. He didn't need a drink. He didn't need closure. He had just given it. Across town, in the dim, candlelit room now rapidly cooling from celebration to confusion, Haley sat frozen, cake untouched, a single smear of frosting clinging to the silver knife beside her. The once lively table had gone still. Guests whispered in pockets, trying to piece together what had just happened. Some pretended to check their phones to avoid the awkwardness. Others simply stared. Eli, now visibly uncomfortable, leaned in again. "What the hell was that?" he asked, his voice a harsh whisper meant only for her. Haley's lips trembled. She tried to answer but couldn't form the words. Instead, she stared at the pages still clutched in her lap, rereading the lines that had unraveled her perfectly curated evening. Terms, dates, signatures, finality. She hadn't seen it coming. Or maybe she had. Deep down in the place she kept buried under brunches and filtered Instagram posts. The part of her that always assumed Noah would never leave. That he would endure the emotional distance, the subtle dismissals, the casual slights. That he would keep sitting at the end of the table and never say a word. Until tonight. Until that envelope slid across the linen tablecloth like a blade. Her eyes scanned the guests around her. They weren't smiling anymore. No more clinking glasses. Just the uncomfortable weight of a scene they weren't supposed to witness. Some looked away, politely pretending not to have seen. Others were still locked onto her, waiting to see if she would laugh it off, cry, explain. She did none of those things. She stood abruptly, clutching the envelope, and muttered something about needing air. But even outside, the night didn't offer the relief it gave Noah. It pressed in on her, sharp and cold. She looked down the street, but his car was long gone. He didn't slam a door. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. He had handed her the consequences in a crisp white envelope, signed and sealed. And now she stood alone, no candle, no husband, no script. Only silence, and everyone had heard it. By morning, the photo was already circulating. It wasn't the kind of viral moment that burns through the internet in seconds. It was slower, more intimate. Shared through stories, texts, whispered in morning phone calls. "Did you see what happened at Haley's party last night?" In the photo, Haley is paused mid-laugh, candlelight soft against her cheek. Her lips are parted in a perfect smile, eyes sparkling. To the casual viewer, it looked like a snapshot of joy, a woman surrounded by love, about to make a wish. But anyone who had been there knew what happened just seconds later. Because in that very moment, an envelope had landed silently in front of her. And with it, everything had changed. Friends didn't ask her about it directly. Not yet. They circled the subject gently, through texts like, "Hope you're okay today," and "Let's do coffee soon." Messages designed to feel warm but heavy with curiosity. People weren't just shocked. They were watching, waiting, wondering how she would spin it. Haley didn't reply to most of them. She stayed inside that Sunday, blinds drawn, the remnants of the party still haunting the corners of her home. Leftover balloons slowly sinking. A half-eaten cake in the fridge she no longer had the appetite for. She held the divorce papers like they might dissolve if she stared at them long enough. But the words didn't change. The signature didn't vanish. He had meant every stroke of the pen. Across town, Noah sat at a cafe, his coffee going cold beside a paperback novel he wasn't really reading. He watched people pass by on the sidewalk, strangers smiling into phones, walking dogs, living lives that didn't orbit a woman who had forgotten his name at her own birthday dinner. He didn't gloat. He didn't need to. Justice, when properly timed, doesn't scream. It echoes. Noah thought about the last 12 months. The way Haley had started drifting, without ever saying she was leaving. The months of watching her light up, for everyone but him. The way Eli's hand had lingered, and the moment her speech didn't include the man who had once held her through 3 surgeries, 5 moves, and countless bad dreams. She hadn't forgotten him by accident. She'd erased him by choice. So he chose to make her remember. Not with yelling, not with accusations, but with perfect timing. That night, after the photo had made the rounds, someone posted it with the caption, "Smile like no one's watching. Just maybe not while your husband is serving you divorce papers." It got shared, quietly, widely. Noah never liked the spotlight. He didn't need it, but sometimes the most unforgettable exits aren't loud. They're timed with a flicker of a candle, a flicker of clarity. And when the flame goes out, what's left behind is truth. Haley had her party, but Noah, he had the last word. And he never had to say it out loud.